GALP。
おい大地、ブッシュヒルゴルフパークで会おう。最寄りの駅は地下鉄ビクトリア線のコックフォスターズだよ。ブッシュロード、コックフォスターズ、マジでそんな場所本当にあんの？からかわれてる？絶対からかわれてるよな。もうネットで調べたいのに、ロンドンマジで Wi-Fi 全然ないんだけど、どうなってんの？海外旅行や出張の準備は万全ですか？次回日本を離れる際はグローバル Wi-Fi で安心。イギリスやアメリカを含む200以上の国と地域で Wi-Fi が利用可能。全国39カ所、そして20の空港で便利な受け取りサービスをご用意。さらに128の国と地域で無制限プランも。お得な価格で快適なインターネットを。今すぐタウン Wi-Fi.com にアクセスし、クーポンコード GAL を入力して 10% 割引をゲットしましょう。この番組はグランドスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Okay, this is going to be a very hard episode to talk about, but I'm going to go for it. With the prices of games hitting £80 during a cost of living crisis, I've been wondering, are we going to see a resurgence of companies like EB Games or GameStation or even Game and Blockbuster in the UK? Before I explain myself, let me get the disclaimer out of the way. For you new folks, GALP is a weekly gaming discussion podcast under the GALP Podcast Network. We talk about all sorts of games from big AAA titles all the way to indie games, but our forte is Japanese games, so expect that a lot. We can be found anywhere where you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and now on YouTube and Podbean. Whilst you're there, be sure to give us a 5-star review and actually a comment as well, because it helps with engagement, and just share the show around. If you want to join in on the fun, then follow us on all of our socials, including Blue Sky, TikTok, Insta, and X, all at Gal Podcasts. Okay, I feel 2025 in a sense is a little bit cyclical, right? We're seeing so many things that were recently the norm start to go back to how they originally were. I'm a 90s kid, and as cringe as that phrase sounds, I'm seeing a lot of trends from the 90s return, from fashion, the film cameras, and I'm seeing a lot of newer generations getting into retro gaming. And by this point, retro gaming is like PS2, right? Which is kind of insane, but fantastic. And honestly, there's a lot of things that I miss about the 90s. One of them being shopping on the high street. I actually do miss that a lot. And being able to buy a house on a livable wage, you know? Imagine being able to buy a house when you just work at Tesco stacking shelves. Those were the days, right? You could literally, you didn't need everyone to be working 40-hour weeks and then barely afford to buy a studio, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going a little bit off topic. You know what? Actually, no, I'm not. Back in the day when a Freddo was only 10p and you could buy a loaf of white bread from Asda for about 7p. 7p for a loaf of bread. I think a loaf of bread now is like £1.20, you know, from Tesco or something like that, which is kind of insane, because I remember the day you used to go into Tesco and the Tesco value bread, which, let's be fair, you don't really know what was in it, but it was 20p. It was 20p. People could afford to eat. People could afford to live. But yeah, that's what I miss about the 90s. And you know what else I miss about the 90s? Game stores. Like going into a shop, like I mentioned, going on the high street, going into a game. Game is kind of like, I don't know, depending on where you live. I mean, there's EB Games, which I believe is GameStop. And I still think there's some EB Games locations in Canada as well. But before we got Game, we had EB Games, right? And there was also another shop called GameStation, which then became part of Game. GameStation was like the store that heavily focused on like pre-owned and stuff like that. And they were like competitors with Game. And back then there was such a thing called competitors. And now if you go into a game, it's very rare that you can actually buy a game on launch. I remember I went there for Assassin's Creed, and it was like they were charging about £70 for Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I went to Argos on the same day and I bought it for 50. Argos, which is owned by Sainsbury's, admittedly. But still, I went to Argos to buy games as opposed to an actual game shop. Anyway, besides the point, you can't even trade in at Game anymore. You can barely buy a console at Game anymore. And it's like, where are the shops? Where are the gaming shops? I mean, you can buy games at HMV, but there's like only one HMV location. Actually, no, there's like 3. But still, like, there isn't that many HMVs anymore. Yeah, I remember pre-ordering games at HMV. But yeah, what I loved about going to Japan, because I go to Japan frequently, what I love about Japan is that you could buy games pretty much anywhere. You could buy a game at Lawson. You could pre-order games at Lawson and stuff. You can buy games at Amazon. You could buy games in Big Camera. There's also some dedicated gaming stores as well. And it was great. Not everything was like, oh, I need to pre-order this and da-da-da-da-da-da. It wasn't like that. You can actually go into a shop, pick up a game. And I don't know if it was Big Camera or Yobadashi Camera. It's one of those two big box stores, but I think it was Big Camera. I went into Big Camera and I saw games and accessories that you would never see in a game store, even nowadays. And I don't think they were selling pre-owned. It was all brand new stuff, but it was still quite cheap because they were stocking even older games, which I thought, oh, that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I miss. I genuinely miss about it. And where am I getting at here? I see that Donkey Kong, I was going to say Country, but this game is not called Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Bonanza is about £80 in the UK. I paid that much to pay that game on launch. Nintendo didn't give us a code, unfortunately. But would I say this game is worth £80? Yes and no. I kind of feel like I could get £80 worth of it, but at the same time, I'm the type of person that wants to go speedrunning. And I think these games as well, especially back in the day when we're thinking about these sort of 3D platformers, stuff like Banjo-Kazooie or Mario Sunshine or Mario 64, etc., or even Mario Galaxy, these games were still kind of in the heyday of blockbusters, right? Like you can go in, rent a game for a weekend and, I don't know how much you would have paid for it. I think maybe about £10-20, but you'd get your fill of the game. And, if you wanted more time, you could pay more time to play the game, and I think also at the same time, game rentals were a good way of sort of, I don't want to say minimizing your backlog, right? Because if you think about it, you're paying for a game to play for a certain period of time, right? And if you don't finish the game within that time period, then you're going to have to rent it again. And it's like, damn, I need to rent this game again and I need to pay more money. So let me get this game out of the way. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like, why can't we get game rentals again? I mean, probably it might not necessarily work because of physical media sort of dying down. And maybe that was the point of it, as in a lot of companies don't like physical media because you can then sell that on. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day. I say back in the day, I think it was for the Xbox One, or was it the Xbox Series, where Sony, it was like Xbox was did this whole thing of basically you're not able to share games. I can't remember the exact thing. And then Sony did something where it was like, this is how you share games on the PlayStation. And then they just pass each other the game, which I thought was hilarious. But I think Xbox and Microsoft backtracked on that and they were like, no, we're not doing that anymore. But sharing games has always been important. I never used to as a kid. My games, I was kind of privileged. My games were always mine and that was it. I don't think I was even allowed to share games with people because I think as a kid, when you're sharing games with people, other kids might steal your stuff and you'll never get that back again. And it's always kind of awkward just asking for a game back and things like that. I've kind of experienced that once, I think. I think it was with a Game Boy game or something like that. But besides the point, I was never really allowed to share games with people. But I love the idea, and don't get me wrong, we even did go to a Blockbuster to rent videos and DVDs and games at times, but that was the fun of it, going in and renting a game for a weekend, or especially if you're a family that doesn't really game a lot, and gaming is a treat when the family comes around and you play a little bit of Mario Kart. Someone like me, yes, Mario Kart came with the Switch too, but I don't always play Mario Kart, guys. I'll play it on occasion. And to me, that sounds like something where maybe I can get a game rental out of, if I went to a Blockbuster and I just rented a game or just rented Mario Kart for the weekend. Now, I don't want to give Nintendo an idea because obviously Nintendo does have virtual game carts and stuff like that. But what actually stops Nintendo from doing virtual game rentals? I don't like the idea of that. That actually kind of scares me a little bit. I do like the idea of physical game rentals because it's very convenient and whatnot. Obviously, there'll be some kinks to iron out a little bit in the sense that what if someone just steals the game? Are you going to charge them full price? I mean, back then, you'd kind of only charge them if they brought it back late. There'll be a late fee or something. But I think now, if there is a late fee, you could just charge them directly on their credit card. Bam, bish, bash, bosh. Charge them the full price of the game if they've stolen the game. So that's kind of a positive, But I think here, how it would work. I can understand how it can work digitally. I can actually see it working digitally. It would kind of work similar to film and movies and things like that. And there are blockades in place. Like I've seen Sony place blockades that if you have a game that was downloaded as a part of, I don't know what Sony's version of Game Pass is called, but it's like the PSN Plus thing. If you have like PSN Plus sort of Game Pass thingy and you don't have PSN Plus anymore, then you just lose access to that game. And technically that is what Game Pass is, and that is what the PSN Plus game library is. I think that's the actual name of it. I think that's technically what it is, but you have a full library. But like, what happened to the times where you could just rent a single game? Oh, you know what? I don't know. I think that Nintendo should introduce something like that with virtual game cards. It would be kind of messy, but I can see it working. Especially if you just want to play a game and forget about it, because there are so many games that I don't want to play after I've finished it. And if you are a collector, great, that's on the wall, it's on the shelf. But if you're not a collector, you don't really need to. That's it. You've experienced the game and that's it. Like, how many movies that have we seen in the cinemas or that we've rented online or whatever, and we never go back to it again? And it's the norm, right? We just don't go back to it. Oh yeah, that was a great movie, and then just forget about it. And this is my issue as well with services like Game Pass and the game library on PSN Plus, is because there's so much choice, we have like decision fatigue. Like we don't know what to pick because there is so much choice, and there's like, we know it's always going to be there. It's kind of like Netflix. Like, you know it's going to be there, you know, I'll just pick something that I'm used to, and then I'll play the same game again and again and again. I'll never pick anything that, and it's weird because there's really no risk because you're already paying for the service and you're just getting all these games. But I feel like if you're renting a single game and you're paying £20 or something to rent the game for a week, you're going to play the shit out of that game. You're going to love it. Well, I don't want to say you're going to love it. You're going to rent that game and you're going to play it because you want to get your money's worth. And I kind of feel like with games being £80, we're sort of going back to the time in the 90s where, you know, games were expensive. Games were expensive in the 90s, and you could argue that games were more expensive in the 90s than they were nowadays when we're thinking about cost of living and how much the sterling was versus the dollar and all that, and inflation and all that. Because games were hell of expensive. Okay, games were maybe 40, 50 pounds back then, and you can get cheaper games for 20, and so you can find some for 10 and 8 pounds and all that. But admittedly, when 30 pounds could buy your weekly shopping at Tesco, you know, paying 40 pounds for a game was a bit steep and was a luxury. A lot of people didn't have access to games back then. I kind of find that we're going back to that time, and we need like game rentals. Physical game rentals. I'm not talking about digital because, like I said, we've got Game Pass, we got this, we got that, we got whatever. I think we need to go back to physical game rentals, and there needs to be some sort of company to facilitate that. So Blockbuster, if you're interested, let's bring it back. Let's bring back Blockbuster for gaming. I don't think many people are going to be using a service like Blockbuster for movies or anything like that because it would just be a bit weird because we've got Netflix. And people might say the same thing. Well, that might be a bit weird because we've got Game Pass. But I don't know. It's not the same. It's just, it's not the same, all right? But yeah, let's talk about Donkey Kong Bonanza. I actually quite like it. It was a really good fun. I like the fact that you can destruct everything, or it was great. Just destroy everything for no reason. And like build your own paths. It's a really good game for like the speedrunning community. And yeah, even Nintendo has realized that because you can apparently finish the game. I've seen people sort of finish the game without even unlocking Pauline. She's still the little rock, which is kind of weird. But, you know, people have done that, and people have completed the game even with Pauline, but without all of the Bonanza. And the game recognizes that. And there's like a special cutscene if you do that. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think, yeah, Bonanza's a good game. Is it worth £80? No, it's not. At most, I'd say it's a £50 game. I think if it was priced at that, I would have been okay with it. £80 for a game, it's a lot of money. Genuinely, it's a lot of money. And, yeah, I don't think I'm willing to pay another £80 for another game in the future. I am quite privileged because I do get a lot of the games for free. They do send us codes. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people, and the majority of people, pay for that game. So paying £80 for a game, and to be fair with you, being a Nintendo game, it's not going to go into sale until they release a new system at this point. So yeah, paying £80 for a game is very, very steep. And I hope Nintendo changes that, but they're not going to, realistically, because they wouldn't charge £80 for a game if people didn't pay for it and people are paying for it, like mugs, like me. I'm a mug. Obviously, I'm doing it for review purposes, but a lot of people are as well. A lot of people are doing it because the game is pretty good and pretty hype, and they don't want to miss out on it. There's a lot of FOMO behind this game, and it's kind of going to be a bit irrelevant in a couple of months. You know what? Like, I've never seen like a Mario title or a Donkey Kong title or any platforming title that has sort of remained relevant for a year past its release date. There'll of course be its fans, but not everyone's going to be playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I don't think I'm going to be playing it. Like, I've kind of stopped playing it at this point, and I've only got the Zebra. I've gotten up to like the Zebra Bonanza. I haven't even experienced all the Bonanzas yet, and I'll do like a full episode on Donkey Kong Bonanza when I finish the game and stuff, but I don't see myself finishing the game. Like, I feel a bit fatigued. I feel Donkey Kong fatigued because there's just so much to do in this bloody game. Anyway, that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but we will talk about something. So see you guys. Bye.